Go up to the girl you want to talk to in the bar and go say hi.
Yeah.
Do not touch. Just say hi. No touching.
Hashtag no regrets, right?
No regrets.
That's the message. The
No
millennial
regrets.
bad tattoo is the
Yeah.
message of the movie.
No regrets. Hey, El Toddo.
What's going on?
We got a podcast, The Buff and the Blazer. If I was a listener, where would I go to find more?
You can check us out on our website, thebuffandtheblazer.com. Drew over there writes a article that goes along with every single episode.
You can find all kinds of little extras on the articles, and you can listen to the podcast right there. Also, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, we're on Twitter at Buff and Blazer. Follow us there.
Get those clicks, people.
The Buff and the Blazer.
Welcome to episode 39 of the Buff and the Blazer podcast. I'm Drew, and as always, I'm here with my good buddy, Mr. El Toddo.
Yo.
How's it going, man?
Going good? Smoky?
Yeah. A little smoky. A little hot box smoky action.
Very smoky in California.
Yeah, just a little bit. Dude. It could be worse, though. I haven't had the coughing fits like some people.
Yeah, where I'm at, I'm like right by one of the fires, and I've had like headaches and congestion and nastiness for like 2 weeks. It sucks.
Yeah, no bueno. Well, speaking of things that suck. Well, maybe that came out wrong.
That was a little harsh. I thought you liked it more than I did.
Yeah, I'll clarify later. We're
right.
talking about the film I'm Thinking of Ending Things, directed by Charlie Kaufman and written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, the infamous screenwriter. And that sounds incredibly harsh, what I just said, but I'm talking more so about what this story's about rather than my thoughts on the story, although I'll just get into it now. I usually ask you first. I'll go first.
Yeah,
this
go
time.
for it. Spill it. I want to
So-
hear what you got to say about this.
So I watched the film, right? This movie's like 2 hours.
It's
A
like
little
2
over
hours and 45 minutes, man. It's long.
And it takes place in 3 locations: a car, a house, and a school. And at the end, I think I was like, the last 5 minutes of the movie, I texted you, and I said, dude, this movie is not for me. And then we kind of had a brief little discussion, and basically what I told you was, this movie's well made, it's well directed, it's well acted, and there's a story here, and I don't think I'm smart enough to interpret it. And you, like, I guess that intrigued you a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the way I said it, though, we were thinking, like, oh, maybe we should do something else. But I'm like, no, I just spent 2 hours going through this, and I'm really interested to see what you thought of it. But anyways, I want to bash this film because it was so abstract and hard to understand, but it's so beautiful. It's like the direction is so great. The acting is spot on. Everyone is really believable, and it's really, really pretty to look at. Like, there's some amazing shots in this film. There's some really interesting imagery. And I was checking out some interpretations on what this movie's about because it's based off a book, too. And there's like a general consensus of what this movie's about, but what's kind of cool about it is you can take it in so many different ways and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong because things are so abstract. So I'm going to say it's hard to sit through 2 hours of this. It's really difficult.
It's longer than that, man. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Is it?
I checked. I paused it like 7 times.
2 hours and 14, yeah.
Because it, like you say, it's a slog, dude.
It's a definite slog, and it feels like a slog, But I feel like if you were to go into this having a general knowledge of what the book's about, you might get something more out of it than what I got. Going in with no idea whatsoever. So I guess I'm still kind of feeling my way through this and like trying to figure out how I really feel about this movie.
Okay.
So let's see how you reacted.
I was fairly engaged the whole time because I wanted to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I realized about halfway through the movie that it's purposefully not making any sense.
Yeah.
And then that kind of opened up the whole new box of figure out why it doesn't make sense, because it obviously doesn't make sense on purpose.
Yeah.
And so it's not my kind of movie, but I'm not going to bash on it that much. Oh, 2 hours and 14 minutes. I'm sorry. I said 2:45.
It feels like 2:45.
It felt like 7, dude. But I can appreciate it for what it is. It's like really abstract and really strange and probably written for the people who are fans of this author's books or style of books.
Right. Or
But-
Charlie Kaufman
But like
and his
it was fairly engaging, even though there's like really no payoff in the movie at all. The acting was really good. It was pretty. It was weird. I would have liked to. It's like a total like hallucinogen movie, like a mushroom movie or something,
Sure.
because of how scrambled time and individuals are. So I was a bit confused for sure, but I think I kind of get the gist of what it is.
Yeah.
And it was just a little long. It's not my kind of movie, but it is really well made. And
Yeah.
it is good for, I think, what it's trying to be,
Right.
even though if that ain't my thing.
Sure. Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page with that. So, this film is going to be really hard to talk about without avoiding spoilers.
We'd be spoiling.
Yeah, so it's we're just going to kind of run through the events of the film kind of as they happen, even though you don't really have to because there's no standard ABC sequence of events in this film. It's
Well, and nothing's going to give anything away because it purposefully doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
right. We could talk about every specific detail, and we probably wouldn't help you much.
No. And it's also not a movie where we can like talk things out and ask
Right.
questions back and forth because it purposefully doesn't make any sense.
Sure. So yeah, let's kind of just as quickly as we can because we don't have all the time in the world. But the film starts off with the young female character, Jessie Buckley, the actress, and I forget her name in the film, and she's credited as the young woman because she's referred to by 3 or 4 different
Yeah, I was
names.
going to say it's changes all the time throughout the movie.
Yeah, which is totally on purpose.
Yeah.
So we're introduced to this character, and she's picked up by her boyfriend, played by Jesse Plemons, and his name's Jake.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's apparently been in some good TV that I haven't seen.
Oh, you didn't know.
Yeah, I've been kind of lean on the TV front, but he has been in some films that I've haven't seen in a while. But
I don't know
Anyway.
if I've ever seen him in anything besides Breaking Bad and El Camino.
yeah, he was in this film with Johnny Depp, now that I remember, called Black Mass, and it was like a total flop. And he was in he had a part in Game Night. But yeah, I totally forgot.
That sounds like an awful romantic comedy.
It's not too bad, actually. Which is hilarious, yeah. Rachel McAdams and Jason Bateman.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
It's
take it
not
back.
too bad at all.
I take it back.
Yeah, the Bateman. So anyways, he plays this character, Jake. And they're literally in a car for what, 30 minutes almost?
It's out
25, 30
yeah,
minutes?
It's somewhere in the 20s.
And they're kind of just having a conversation. And parts of it are going on as they talk to each other. Parts of it are going on in the female character's head as she's kind of monologuing and talking about life and these real grand statements. And they're on the way to visit Jake's parents at their farmhouse. and they're in like the middle of a snowstorm. And what was the text that you sent me as you were on that part of the film? I'm gonna bring it up right now.
I think I said.
You said, "Is the whole movie set in the car?" Question mark.
Well, because what my thinking was, it wasn't there a movie with I think it was Colin Farrell called Phone Booth, where the whole movie he's in a phone booth.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So like I haven't seen that movie, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, this whole movie's just going to be some super abstract, weirdo conversation between these three people, the talking girl and the different girl in her head, and Jake, who can also hear the third girl.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Right.
And then, eventually that scene does end and they get to the farm and it gets even weirder.
And so while they're on this car ride, there's also these random shots of this old man in a house. And this guy's played by Guy Boyd, and he's credited as the janitor. And he's kind of going through his day in his house. He looks like he's maybe in his 70s or 80s, and he's eating like his bowl of cereal and going through his day. And then we find out that he's a janitor at a high school. And these are kind of randomly placed within the story going on between Jake and his girlfriend. And so they pull into the house and meet his parents, who take like 20 minutes to come down to meet them. So that, yeah, it's really, really difficult to sit through at times.
It's so awkward.
It takes a lot of patience.
It's so awkward.
And if you go through a couple of YouTube videos too, they show you how much this film is connected with characters, with symbols, with little things in the background like books on the shelf and stuff. There's all kinds of little hints that try to tell you what's going on, but if you're sitting into this film without any idea what's going on, it's going to fly right over your head, like it did mine.
Yeah, me too. And it's like obviously a really complex and intricate novel, right?
Right.
And it's just almost like too much subtlety for the person who is not familiar at all with the story,
right,
to follow. It's just like too subtle,
Yeah, for sure. So actually up to that point where they get to the house, I thought it was pretty straightforward. Like other than the maybe one or two random scenes of the old guy, the janitor character, I was like, okay, I can follow this. I just felt like it was a super existential film about this girl, and she's trying to figure out her life, and her thoughts are just part of the audience's thoughts too. She's letting you know. But then they're sitting down with his super creepy parents at the table, eating dinner, and they're really, really odd. And at one point you sent me another text, and I'll read this one out. And you say, they're going to sacrifice her, huh? And you definitely get that vibe. There's that really creepy, tense vibe that you get between them, between all four characters at the table as they're eating dinner.
That's where I thought it was going. I thought it was going to turn into like a pretty gruesome horror movie at some point. It doesn't.
And they make a reference to like the farm pigs that died because they were eaten alive by maggots. And then they're eating this fat carved ham on the table.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really off-putting. So sure, I was like, I got to that part, and I'm like, okay, he has a really weird family. And this film on a couple sites is billed as a horror thriller, which is really interesting. So I almost kind of thought the same thing you did. And so after the dinner, she goes upstairs, and she's in Jake's childhood room. And his dad walks into the room behind her, and he's aged like 20 years.
Yeah.
From when he was downstairs eating dinner with everybody. So at that point, I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And then that's when things just start to get real psychological and trippy. And then, yeah, there's a lot of time spent in the house and a lot of weird imagery like that.
The whole second act, which is like 3 times as long as the first and the last act.
Right.
Is all in this house. And like you said, time, it turns into like a time warp, age warp thing.
Right.
With all the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And just keeps getting stranger and stranger and stranger.
Right. And so his dad ages like 20 plus years, the same thing with his mom. And at one point his mom is in a hospital bed downstairs, and she's like on her deathbed, and Jake is sitting next to her, tending to her as she's getting ready to die, and Jake's girlfriend is kind of taking all this in, and she just wants to get back home because she has to go to work the next day. And so while all that happens, they eventually get back into the car and drive through this massive snowstorm, this blizzard, to get back to her, wherever her apartment, her home, so she can get back to work. And she's doing more of her kind of internal dialogue that we can hear, and she says something about time and how we think of time like we move through time, but maybe time moves through us and we're kind of stationary. And she's like, I felt like that's what was happening to me. Like I was moving through the events that were going on in the house. Like I was time and I was seeing it. And I'm like, okay, so maybe she's just kind of, she's here in the moment, but what she's imagining in her mind, we're all being shown on screen. So I was like, okay, I kind of think I know what's going on. Nope.
No, because she all of a sudden gets mixed in with all the time warp and all the madness.
Right.
And at one point, she is the same girl, like in her 40s or late 40s, who is the girl in the movie, who the old man at the janitor, he's watching the movie. And from then on, I was just like, okay, this is something completely insane going on, and everything is connected, you know?
Yeah. So I'll try to wrap this up quickly now. So ultimately what happens is they stop to get, some shakes, some ice cream?
Yeah, it's some type of famous, whatever they are.
Dairy joint.
Like a Foster's Freeze or something.
Right. And they're going through and eating their ice cream, and I guess at some point Jake gets really upset that there's a bunch of these like cups in his car, and he freaks the fuck out. And he really wants to dump these cups out. But instead of, just throwing them out the window, he thinks that it's a good idea to go to his school, which is down the street, so he can stop to a trash can and dump them out. And so they get to the high school. He gets out of the car to throw away the cups, and she's kind of stuck in there. And it's like he's not coming back. And he ultimately doesn't come back to the car. So she leaves the car to go into the high school to find him. And she runs into the janitor that we've been kind of seeing throughout the film, this old man. And there's this weird exchange between them. And at one point she's giving him a hug. And it's like, okay, I think I can piece this together if I try really hard. And then from there, it kind of morphs into this musical number.
Yeah.
And and the way it's set up too, you get Jake and his girlfriend on opposite sides of the hallway in this high school. And then you get like two doppelgangers.
Teenage versions of them.
That come out behind them and then start breaking into like this dance.
That goes on for a while. It's pretty good too, by the way, the dancing, even though it's completely confusing and throws you for a loop.
Yeah. And it's really confusing, but really beautiful. And it's kind of this this abstract dance number that is the whole relationship between Jake and his girlfriend through dance. And it ends up in the gym, and all of a sudden the janitor becomes involved, and he takes a knife and stabs the younger kid in the chest, and you get the fake blood with the streamers.
Part of the performance.
Right, he's part of the performance. And then it kind of ends, and he's sweeping up the snow that was falling inside the gym, because it wouldn't be complete without snow. And I'm trying to think what happens after that. So from there,
then it gets weirder.
Yeah, so from there the old man hops into his truck right outside.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jake and his girlfriend are completely gone. We don't know what happened to them. So he goes into his truck, and it's snowing and it's cold, and he begins to almost panic. He goes into a panic attack, right?
I guess.
Starts taking his clothes off. And I'll say earlier in the film, one of the cutscenes that has the old man, he's sitting down at his table watching a small portable TV with old-timey cartoons on them. So at this point in the film, at the end, he's in his truck, and the windshield turns into like a screen and starts playing old-timey cartoons.
It's very strange.
It's really, really cool. But yeah, really strange. And all of a sudden, there's this animated pig that leads him out of the truck, down the hallway, back into the school, while he's walking buck naked with this fat, gorged, animated pig walking in front of him, and basically telling him, like, you know, it's all right. It's, you know, your life isn't all that it's cracked up to be. I mean, you're just a pig. It's fine. And so the crescendo in all this is the janitors led to what appears to be a ceremony or a play at the high school.
It's both.
Both. And you get Jake on stage, although he looks like he's aged with fake makeup, along with everyone in the stands that's also aged with really fake Halloween-y makeup. And he's basically acting out a scene from the musical Oklahoma.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
Which they were like kind of talking about in the car earlier in the film.
Okay.
And he's there reciting this song from Oklahoma, all while he's acting out receiving a Nobel Peace Prize. So he breaks out into this number, and from there, does it just cut? Like it cuts to...
That's the movie.
That's the movie, right?
That's
and
it.
You get the title. So there's the whole movie for you in a nutshell. And trust us when we say that we didn't spoil it for you, because you can go in and watch it and still not know what the hell.
So, all right, now that we, laid out what it is and how weird it is and how it doesn't
Long
make
story
any
short,
sense.
it's a mindfuck.
It's a mind fuck, yes.
Yeah.
And it's a deliberate mind fuck. It's meant to be confusing. But I want to ask you, and then I'll give you, what is your, or maybe I should say, because you've researched it a bit afterwards.
Yeah.
What was your take on it right at the end? What do you think it was trying to say, and what do you think it was?
Okay, so up to the very end of the film, I was still under the belief that this film was about the female character and not about Jake. That was my initial thought, because the title of the film is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And throughout the whole film, she's the one that's thinking those thoughts. So I was like, is this kind of her? She seems like she's not into this relationship. Like she got into it because it felt good at the time, but she's taking it really, really seriously. And she's like, I'm really thinking of breaking this off and having a hard time just doing it. And so I felt like this whole film was her kind of visualizing what if of this relationship. If it kept going, where could it end up, and what would happen to them, and what would happen to her. And apparently I was completely wrong, because this movie is not about her at all.
All right.
Okay, so now let's get your take on it after you watch the film.
So right when it ended, I still feel this way. I haven't done any of the research on knowing exactly what the story is about.
Sure, and then after you say what you say, I'll report on what I read and watched.
I think the movie is the old man's dream. I think the whole thing is his dream, and he's reliving all of the bad parts of his life and all of the missed opportunities with the love of his life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I read it as, because it's too connected to Jake, and my read on it is that Jake is the old man.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the way I interpret it. It's a big, long, crazy dream that he has. Because when you have dreams, you always get these like random things from very recent memory.
Oh yeah,
in there,
yeah.
Even like weird stuff, And the whole movie basically has that feel of like a really strange dream, where time and people are changing and everything is just doesn't make any sense.
Well, the weird thing is too, like often when you dream, you'll have like something random that comes into your dream that may be completely outside of what's going on at the moment, but it feels like it fits.
Yeah,
you know
and
what
that's
I'm talking
like
about?
how the whole movie is.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so
So
Now
you're
that-
a lot closer to what I've been reading.
Okay, that's my take on it.
A lot more close. And there's a lot to support that too. So one thing I can point out for sure is that the old man walking around in his janitorial suit has the insignia of the high school on his chest. So when they're in the house, at his house,
The washing machine.
she goes into the basement, opens up the washing machine, and all she finds are sweaters with the tag with
Yeah.
the same logo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're absolutely 100% correct that this old man is Jake. Now, from what from some of the things I've been reading, because a lot of people are talking about the book too, none of this happened at all. Like, all of this is just romantic fantasy going on in this old man's
daydreaming?
head, daydreaming of what he wished he could have had in his life and failed to achieve. So he wanted a girl like this.
A smart
some-
physicist girl.
Right, and someone even said that, and I don't know if this is in the book because neither of us have read the book, but at one point they were saying that he was actually at a bar, which is what they say, the way he met his girlfriend in the movie. He saw her at the bar and didn't have the guts to go up and talk to her. And was just kind of creeping, watching her the whole time and missed out on it.
So it's
and
like
so-
the reverse Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah. It's basically like this whole story is about an old man at the end of his rope that's going through all the what ifs of his life.
That ain't no way to live, man.
Yeah, it's awful.
Poor
And
dude.
which,
Get some
going
weed,
back to
watch
my-
some South Park.
going back to my original comment that I opened up with is, speaking of awful, like, yeah, it's an awful, depressing story.
I didn't find it super depressing. I was actually laughing quite hysterically throughout like the last 15
Yeah, 'cause
minutes of the
there's-
movie.
So many, well, me too. Yeah, there's so many awkward moments. But when you kind of find that out, it's just sad. It's like really sad and depressing that it's just.
I'll
That's it
take
for
my
this
dream interpretation and run with it. I like that more because it's not as
Sure.
depressing.
Well, here's the thing too. Like, what's kind of cool about this movie is that you can interpret it in lots of different ways and find evidence throughout the film to support your view, I think. So I'm almost against saying like this is what the movie's about, because you could interpret this in a bunch of different ways. And I'm sure like even Charlie Kaufman in an interview said that the way he ended the film was even in a way that he wanted the audience to kind of come up with their ending.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
And like I said, that kind of gets back to I can respect it for what it is.
sure.
You know, it's a purposeful, mindful. It's a very like festival-y type movie, right?
Oh yeah. It's extremely artistic.
Yeah, it's definitely not a theater movie. It fits good with Netflix.
Right.
But it was strange, man.
It's really strange.
And it's long.
It's long. Yeah, it's really long. And I think you and I had to pause and kind of take ourselves out.
Oh, dude, I paused it like 7 times. Just like,
I couldn't.
all right,
It
where's
was really
this
hard to
going?
sit through.
And after about the 3rd time, all the pausing I was doing was just kind of to see how much there was still left.
Yeah, me too.
Because like I got it, you know, I got that it was weird, and I didn't even expect it to bring around like some awesome resolution where I had a bunch of closure. I didn't even
Right,
expect
yeah.
it to go there. So I was
Right.
just like, all right, just get it over with. And then I was kind of pleasantly surprised at how wacky and off the wall the last 15 minutes was. And that's kind of what really solidified my dream interpretation.
Right.
Like the pig and the dancing and all, I was like, oh, it's a dream, you know? It's
Right,
just
right,
weird
right.
as hell dream.
Yeah, and basically that's what it is. It is a dream. It's this guy's fantasy. This like hopeless old romantic's fantasy of what he's cooking up in his head. And it's kind of cool that Netflix is just like, I love how they can just throw money out and be like, let's make this, let's make that.
Yeah, right. There's a space for it. It
Yeah,
might
for
not be
sure.
for everybody, but it's definitely cool and it's definitely artsy. And there's probably
and I guarantee
a really
you there's going to be an audience for this somewhere. There's someone that's going to really enjoy this film.
yeah, man. There's like a deep fiction novel book club of kids that is just like, this is the best movie that's ever been made type thing.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a film that has symbols in it and that has connections that you can literally trace from beginning to end, this is the film. Like, it's littered with clues and all kinds of connections going on. So yeah, I feel like if you were familiar with the story already, you would get a lot out of it. And if you go in kind of with an idea of the premise, you're going to get a lot out of this. So I said this before we started, but I was like, I would almost kind of go back and rewatch this. And you were like,
No, I get enough of it, and
Yeah.
I can see why people would if they're fans of
Right.
this type of genre or this author.
Yeah.
It's made for them. It's not made for me. I appreciate it, but I ain't watching it twice.
No, it's totally fair. It's totally fair. And Charlie Kaufman has a reputation of really challenging you. Like, he's all about getting inside the head of a character and totally cracking it open.
Yeah, I like that too.
So yeah, if you're looking for someone to spoon feed you a plot and be like, this is what's going on, this is not the movie for you.
Right? And it's like I shit on really predictable arcs all the time,
Yeah.
and this is like so the opposite end of that. I wouldn't even
Sure.
say it's an arc. It's just like a confusing pinball machine
Yeah.
of inside the old man's brain, essentially.
Right. Yeah. It's well made. It's definitely well made. I think this is a good point, though, to transition into some of the really good parts of this film that I think you can objectively appreciate.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the acting in this film, because I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, so for me, every character was insanely believable
Yeah.
and really creepy, with the exception of like Jessie Buckley's character. She really wasn't
Yeah.
that creepy,
Right.
but everyone else was so creepy.
Yeah. Everyone else I felt like was almost wound up like a spring, and at any moment they could just completely explode.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really a good way to describe Jake.
And that goes for Jake, and I think that also goes for his parents.
Yeah, his parents are freaky.
So his parents, by the way, Toni Collette plays Jake's mom, and if you've seen Hereditary, like,
We got to
she's
do
so
it
good.
at some point.
She's so good at playing the creeper. And David Thewlis plays his dad, and he's great too as another English actor. Really, really, really good in this movie.
I burst out laughing at one of his lines when they're at the dinner table.
Is it when they're talking about painting and how it's sad?
Yeah, and then he says something, I think it's like Dustin Hoffman or something, like he's a Nancy
Oh,
or something along those lines.
Yeah. Oh, I forget
And
who he was talking about.
I forget who they're talking. They like a movie comes up or something.
Yeah.
But I was fucking laughing so loud, like I literally burst out laughing when he said that.
Well, 'cause
you're
the way
so
he speaks-
wound up, and because
Yeah,
there's so
and-
much tension in the scene.
And he's really soft spoken in the movie. And the way he drops it is just so nonchalant, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
the way they captured the awkward meeting of parents for a significant other
Yeah.
was so good.
Yeah. Yeah,
And that's
for sure.
because of the acting, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's always like the worst to get through. And it comes across in this film. What did you, well, let's see. Was there a performance by anyone in the film that stuck out to you the most?
So
That you enjoyed most?
I probably liked the father the most.
Okay, yeah.
I gotta give Jesse or they're both Jessies.
Yeah, they're both Jesse.
Jesse Square, dude.
Yeah.
Clemens and Buckley, a lot of props because like the dialogue weight that
Yeah.
Jesse Buckley carries throughout, like she probably has 80% of the dialogue in the movie, whether it's her talking
She has
or
most of
her
it,
in
yeah.
her head, maybe
Right.
70%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
Like to have just single dialogue scenes between them two going on for literally 20 plus minutes
Yeah.
on the screen, and it's somehow still engaging.
Yeah, that's the
is-
thing. Like,
is
while they're in
weird,
the
man.
car, on that long first car ride, it almost has this like unscripted feel to it. Even though it was obviously detailed and scripted out. There's almost this improv aspect to their banter back and forth in their conversation. It feels so natural. And they have a really good chemistry.
And Jesse's so creepy. Jesse Plemons, Jake. He's so
Yeah.
creepy. And like the whole time that she's having her inner monologue, that like stream of consciousness type shit,
Right.
you get the sense that he can hear her
Yeah.
and he knows what she's saying because he's like asking her to spill those internal thoughts out into the open.
Yeah.
They're so good. And the girls, all the Tulsi Town girls, all three of them, they're super creepy. And like nothing ever happens with them in a bad way, but they're super creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was like a very decent horror movie vibe throughout 3/4 of this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But it does not go that way at all. And the more I think about it, the more it is just like dreamy, you know?
Well, here's the other cool thing. So the Tulsi Town ice cream girls. Do you remember the scene where
Is this Oklahoma? Is this making sense now? Tulsi Town, Oklahoma, the musical? Is that more?
it could be? I'm not
little
familiar with
things that we're
with the
unlocking?
musical. Yeah, I'm not sure. But what I was gonna say was, you remember the scene where old man Jake is walking through the hallway at the high school, and the kids are kind of making fun of him, and there's a couple girls there.
Yeah.
Those are the same girls.
Yeah, and the girls that are singing in the musical while
Yep.
he's cleaning up the stands.
Yeah.
And the one girl gives him the dirty look because he be perving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those
so
are
those
the
are the
same
same
girls.
girls from the ice cream joint later on. So it's pretty. Yeah, it's really really well connected and crafted. What's really interesting too is Charlie Kaufman doesn't direct a whole lot.
All right.
He's known as a screenwriter, and he has 4 films on his filmography. So I don't know, he killed it for me. Like, he did a great job directing this film. Because I feel like there's a lot of detail you have to pay attention to, and it all kind of connects if you're able to look at it and find it, because it's all there. But yeah, back to the acting. I thought it was a massive strength. And I loved, my favorite character by far in this whole film was Jessie Buckley. Like, her performance in the film was so well done
Yeah.
and so believable. The other thing too, like the title of this film, I'm thinking of Ending Things. It seems like it's a film about suicide, right?
Well, doesn't Netflix have like a whole show about teens killing themselves and they got in trouble because a bunch of teens killed themselves?
Probably.
Because of watching it?
Yeah, I feel like they have films about everything.
But yeah, it does have kind of like, and it almost does have like a vibe when it starts.
Yeah, well, let me ask
Like
you
it
this.
could go that way.
Yeah, let me ask you this. What do you think?
And
Why do you think this film is called I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
Because I have a feeling most of the original way it was written is like poetry
Uh-huh.
that started with that. Because like it happens in both car rides that she starts a long inner stream of consciousness monologue with that phrase.
Yeah.
It happens like 4 or 5 times whenever it like cuts to her inner monologue.
Right.
So I think there's probably a bunch of poems from the original book because there's a bunch of
Yeah.
poetry in the movie too, right? She reads that long poem, and then that's the same poem that is in the book in his childhood bedroom. Did you catch that?
Wadsworth, right?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, Wadsworth.
So, yeah, that's my guess.
I don't fucking know.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
know poetry, man, but
I know, me
I
either.
do get it, you know?
Yeah. So that's another like connecting thing too.
Yeah, and the whole movie's probably like that. For somebody that knows, it probably is
For sure.
epic, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's
But all in all, the acting is so good that
Yeah,
that's
really
really
well done.
it carries the film. Because
sure.
if it was bad acting with how weird it is and how drawn out and kind of offbeat it is,
yeah,
it would be hard to watch.
for sure.
Like if you didn't buy any one of the characters in the whole story, you'd probably come out with a really, really negative interpretation of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I came out of this film kind of like I said, I felt like it wasn't for me, but I also couldn't say that it was a piece of garbage.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause it's not.
It's too intricate to say it's a piece of garbage.
There's no way, like, you just can't say that. Because it's definitely crafted in a particular way, and it tells the story I think it wants to tell. So it's kind of cool in that sense, I guess.
Very artsy, you know, very different than most everything we review.
For
so
sure.
you got to give it props.
Absolutely.
And you come out of it like fucking baffled and totally mind fucked, and if that's the intention, you know, bravo.
Right.
It's kind of like, I mean, my favorite movie ever is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and the last 15, 20 minutes of that movie are so fucking insane.
That movie is like a more enjoyable...
Yeah, that's a lot more fun, right?
Lighthearted film.
And it's a drug-induced kind of psychosis at the end that is completely...
But very much in that same vein.
He doesn't even know what part of it's real. But yeah, very much in that same... It is so goddamn confusing, but it's just not drugs. It's dreams, and dreams are just as confusing, if not more confusing, to me than heavy psychedelics.
That's a great comparison, I think.
Yeah.
On like opposite ends of the spectrum, you have this real dramatic take on this morphing kind of dream-like story, while you also have Fear and Loathing on the other side that's just bonkers but a lot more fun.
That's my favorite movie ever, man.
It's a great one.
I've said it before, but I don't read a lot of fiction books, and that book isn't really fiction. It's a totally like different kind of genre. But I actually wrote a paper in college comparing and contrasting the book and the movie.
Yeah.
And they're both wildly awesome and confusing, and Hunter S. Thompson's awesome. But yeah, this movie leaves you as confused and a bit... I wasn't really down in the dumps, though. Like, Fear and Loathing doesn't leave you down in the dumps. It's kind of like a motivating ending.
Sure.
And this movie, I wasn't down in the dumps, but it sounds like the true message of the story is rather depressing. But I was pretty entertained and laughing throughout the whole kind of culmination of the whole movie because of how weird it is.
Yeah. And there were definitely moments where I laughed out loud just because I was like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm. I was even calling shit out. So, like, I was calling out as it got weirder and weirder, and I was just, like, calling shit out, like, oh, that's that, and that, like speaking out loud, but just by myself.
Yeah.
Verbally calling things and pointing to it on the screen, like, okay, that connects with that, and, like...
Yeah.
It's like a giant puzzle at the end of the movie.
Yeah, for sure. That's another really good analogy. God, man, you're on a roll today. It's like a mixed-up jigsaw puzzle.
It's like,
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a jigsaw puzzle that gets
you
like
can see
picked
pieces
up by
and fragments
a dirt
of
devil at the end of the movie and just
Yeah.
smashed against the wall, and it's super weird.
Right. Yeah, that's another great analogy of this film. Man, blowing my mind. All right. Let's get into another bit of movie making that is also excellent in this film, which is, I think, the cinematography and just the overall look of the film. Man, from the opening shot, when you get Jake's girlfriend and she's kind of looking up at the sky and the snow, the flurries are falling, it is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's something about the way it's framed, how she's in focus and the background's slightly out of focus, and the deep color in her jacket. There's a lot of really pretty shots in this movie.
And there's a lot of trippy shots, too, and I almost felt like it was this really... kind of complex mix of really basic, almost like B-movie stuff.
Yeah.
And then really complex modern editing and panning. Like a lot of the stuff inside the house, a lot of the panning work.
Right.
Was insane.
Yeah, and you know what? Remember how you were saying that you think they were going to sacrifice her?
Yeah.
So some of the shots in the house are very reminiscent of horror films.
And dude,
you get that vibe?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you remember the shot when they first come through the door of the house and the camera's on them going through the front door, and then the camera just kind of slides over to an empty room.
Yeah, there's a bunch
that they
of
walk
that.
into.
Yeah.
And that's so typical of horror films. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff, it could throw you off a bit because it has a little bit of that DNA in it, too.
Well, that whole house scene is really creepy.
Well, apparently people were saying, too, that read the book, that the book's even creepier.
Yeah, I would imagine. And
Yeah.
it's almost like the old man has scary childhood memories of his house, of things that traumatized him at a young age, like the pigs or, whatever, the basement stuff that freaked him out as a kid. And that's like totally in his modern consciousness still. Like he's
Yeah.
traumatized from it.
Right.
It's really, I don't know, man. The more we talk about it, the more it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a fucking little bit of a masterpiece
Yeah.
from a mindfuck standpoint.
Yeah. I kind of was saying that before we started recording. The other thing, too, is interesting is you notice that the film is in letterbox aspect ratio.
I don't know.
Okay, so on my TV, it's cut
Oh,
in the 4:3
Oh.
aspect ratio.
yeah.
And so
I
it
did
also
notice that.
it adds a little bit of like this claustrophobia on top of everything that's going on.
Yeah, like in
As-
the car.
Right, exactly.
Huh.
And I think that's all done on purpose.
Those are all
Um,
my favorite, technical shots in the movie. All the stuff in the house.
Yeah.
It was really good, really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And like when they would pull out, like at the dinner table, when they would pull out when she was continuing her story,
Yeah.
Jessie Buckley's character, and she was the only one in frame, but you could still tell they were all sitting there at the table. Some of those
Yeah.
shots that were like slowly, they were just like, it's pretty cool and had a really creepy vibe.
Yeah.
And the scene where she's walking down the stairs and she ends up walking down like 6 flights.
Yeah.
With
She
her
goes
inner
up and-
monologue.
yeah. She just
dude.
keeps going on a loop.
Yeah, like that's really cool.
Yeah.
And the dog, dude, the dog that's like super shaking its head. That's the only thing it's doing. That was another big part that kind of clued me into. It's like something weird in a dream,
Yeah.
It's your dog, but you never see its face, and it's always wagging, like
Yeah.
nonstop. There's just like weird glitches in dreams, like trying to run. There's sometimes you can't run in a dream. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. For
That's
sure.
like the vibe that I got from the dog shaking its head. I was like, oh, it's totally a dream. Because the dog's just shaking his head nonstop, and that's like a weird dream glitch thing.
Right. Yeah, no, there's a bunch. And we have to mention, too, the last, 10 minutes of the film, the whole musical number,
Yeah, it's
the
like
dance sequence.
it's very good.
I
It's
mean-
very well choreographed, and the dancers were
it's
good.
a musical sequence.
The girl is
like-
much better than the guy in terms of dancing, but
You would know that, too.
serious, yeah, just
Yeah,
from like
you
a
would know
ballet
that.
perspective,
Yeah, for sure. So,
Might
yeah,
have been
I
the
mean,
guy's clothes though, holding him back. You couldn't see those,
Oh, yeah.
the points and whatnot, and straight knees and whatnot.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a kind of film that's definitely going to challenge anyone coming in to direct it. So, I thought it was executed really, really well. And it looks great.
You think the book has all of that musical stuff?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Because that almost
only thing
feels
I-
really out of character from the rest of the movie.
Yeah. The only thing I know of, and this is because Kaufman said it in an interview, but I guess the girlfriend character has a lot less to do in the book than she does in the film. And he said he had to give her more to do in the movie to make it more, I guess, maybe to get it to come across better on camera.
That's an interesting little tidbit because even though Jake is the main character, he is kind of short in his speech
Yeah, he doesn't say a whole
throughout
lot.
the whole movie. And if she isn't speaking both her inner monologue and regularly,
Right.
who the hell's talking that whole movie?
Yeah. Well,
What
that
the
goes
hell's
back-
going on,
She's probably the manifestation of Jake's like thoughts, and she's vocalizing all of it for the audience.
Now we're getting
She's like the
deeper.
vehicle. Yeah,
Getting deeper.
she's basically the vehicle to drive what he's thinking and relay it to the audience. Looking back on it, armchair quarterbacking it just a little bit.
Oh, man. It's a mind fuck, dude.
It is for sure.
But it's beautiful, and the hologram pig is like cheesy, but kind of works.
I thought it was so damn cool.
Okay.
I thought it was really cool.
It kind of works. It's very strange. And the whole cartoon in the windshield is very strange.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the cartoon commercial for
The ice
Tulsa
cream joint,
Town
right?
ice cream joint, and it's
Yeah.
all wrapped up. It's very strange.
Oh gosh.
That has to be in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would think so.
It has to
It's-
be.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a
Because-
lot of like strong Oklahoma references in this movie.
Yeah, it has to be.
Real quick score. I don't remember a whole lot of score.
I want to give props, dude.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
Okay.
the strange and the weird of this movie is heightened by the fact that there's no fucking mood music
Right.
throughout most of it. The whole musical number and stuff, that's a whole nother deal. And how
That's different.
It opens with some kind of fairy tale type stuff.
Yeah, okay, that's what I remember.
But
You get like the harp, the magical like fairy music in the beginning.
yeah, in terms of like the house scene, I don't even know if there might be like sounds occasionally,
Yeah.
but there's no like composed
Like real-
music.
Real atmospheric stuff that you wouldn't really notice at all.
Yeah, so I'm
I
gonna
don't
give
think-
mad props on that because I always shit on scores and I always say respect the silence, and
Yeah.
this movie does all the way.
For sure. And to be honest, the film works completely silent because there's just so much going on
Yeah, it's so awkward.
to pay attention. Like any music I feel would take you out of the movie. You don't need any more distraction.
It would make it unbearable, to be honest. Like with the cheese, because it's so
Yeah.
hard to follow and it's so weird.
For
that
sure.
If there was bad music going on,
Yeah.
it'd be no bueno, dude.
And I think the only kind of music I remember that's not with the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie is when they're listening to the Oklahoma. Like, there was a song on the radio?
Yeah.
Diegetic music from Oklahoma, the musical or something
Yeah.
that they were listening to?
And then he sings at one point
Yeah.
the Tulsa Town song,
Yeah.
and it's very strange.
Yeah, I'm really. It's driving up my score talking about this movie.
Yeah, me too, man.
It was such a hard watch, though, you know?
Yeah, that's right. It's like it was hard to get through, but when you take it for what it is,
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
it is really cool.
I could see some people having a really bad reaction to it, though.
Yeah, well, I'll be completely honest. I was 30 minutes into this movie, and I was this close to calling you and telling you, let's do another one.
Yeah.
But
And to be fair, when you text me at the end of the movie, I even got the vibe.
You
that
thought-
that's
yeah.
what you were saying.
no, yeah, I just kind of slogged through it. But I'm kind of glad I did now.
I'm glad I did. I'm glad I talked about it
Yeah,
because it's very easy to just say fucking, yeah, it sucked. But if you actually want to break it down and you actually want to take it for what it is and appreciate what it is, I got to say I probably enjoyed it more than
than I did.
no more. I was
Oh.
trying to think of a movie that
Oh,
we
yeah,
did
yeah.
recently. Actually, I enjoyed it a lot more than a fair amount of the movies we've done, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of craft and quality. This one is one of the more well-made films we've done.
Yeah, you know, it's The Other Lamb is kind of like a good comp. Like that movie's weird as fuck and very artsy, but not very entertaining.
Yeah. And I don't know, I just feel like what they were trying to say in this film has a lot more weight than what they were trying to say in The Other Lamb.
Yeah, see, I differ with you there. So
Really?
like The Other Lamb had this great message of, you know, fuck these
Or actually-
religious pedophiles. But this
Maybe
movie,
the execution of the message was better.
I don't get any type, or I didn't get the message that is kind of conveyed in what you've researched, like the
Mhm.
depressing side. The
Yeah.
message I get is like, oh, dreams are weird as fuck.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's not profound in any way. It was just like a good example of like, yeah, dreams are fucking weird.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
I didn't get some big old fucking meaningful message out of it.
I guess there
There
kind
was-
of isn't a message.
We're supposed to feel bad for old people living through all their regrets.
No, I'm just thinking if there's any message to take out of this film, it's go up to the girl you want to talk to in the bar and go say hi.
Yeah.
Do not touch. Just say hi. No touching.
Hashtag no regrets, right? That's the
No regrets.
That's the message. The
No
millennial
regrets.
bad tattoo is
Yeah.
the message of the movie.
No regrets. Yeah, so that's the message. That's the message.
All right. What are you going to... Oh, no. Let's do some love hates.
Yeah, love hates. Okay, so this movie's it makes me feel so many different emotions. I love how well directed this film is. It's so well directed. It's like a master painting, really. It's like a Picasso. It has a beauty to it that's very abstract, and while it's confusing on some level because the way it's pieced together is not traditional, it's done so in such an obviously planned way and thought out way that it's just really beautiful, especially in hindsight when you kind of get a little bit more of what this story's about. So I really like that. And the more we talk about this film, the more I'm liking it. And I guess what I hate is that I wish I was just, I wish I was a little more keyed into what was going on at the time, because I feel like I could have got a lot more out of it than what I did. My initial reaction is kind of what I would feel most people's initial reaction is what the hell and why am I watching this? But having sat here and discussed it, I'm really gaining an appreciation for this movie.
All right.
What about you?
I loved the father. He's my favorite character in the whole movie. Every line. He's hilarious when he's young, when he's old, when he's middle-aged, all of it.
Yeah.
He was cracking me up. He was my favorite part of the movie. And if I had to say something I hated about the movie, it is just that for how deep the damn movie is in terms of the construction of the story and how convoluted and wacky it is, there isn't for me any type of overarching message for some type of closure.
Sure.
It's just more of like, there's a bunch of depressed old people out there. And dreams are weird.
Don't be like them.
Don't be hashtag no regrets.
No regrets.
That's
no
what
touching.
It is. For how complex, that's what I hate. For how complex it is and how basically well executed it is, there isn't like a bigger overall message.
Yeah. I get you.
It's almost like this. It comes back to a very like nihilist perspective, like a very nothing matters, everything is just as it is kind of thing.
Yeah. That's another thing I love. I'll go back to that too. I think one thing for sure you can say is you can take out a bunch of different interpretations from this movie. And they can all in their own way be correct. I don't think there's one right way to interpret this movie. That's what's kind of cool. I think there's a lot of different things you can draw out of it. Hashtag no regrets.
Jake's even a bit of a peeper too, because you can tell he regrets that.
Oh yeah, and there's he's looking through windows and stuff with his broom,
peeping at the old high school kids, man.
Yeah, it's creepy.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy.
This fucking mind fuck.
Yeah.
What are you gonna give it? What's your ranking?
Okay. Now this is kind of a cop-out.
Don't be copping out, dude.
All right. Okay. Man, I have to give this movie a 4.
All right.
I have to give this movie a 4. It's just too well made. It's too well made for me to give it anything lower than that. I feel like there was a lot of time invested into the story and a lot of time invested into crafting it visually and on the page. And I really respect the final product. And especially being able to kind of go through a little bit of what this movie's about. It kind of blows my mind. Even more so than when I was sitting down the first time watching it. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. I'm really liking it more.
All right.
What about you?
I will give it 3.5 bong loads because like everything you said, it's really well made. The acting is great. It's extremely intricate story construction, and they really respected the silence on the whole soundtrack aspect.
Yeah.
For how weird the movie is. So with all of that, I'm giving all of that giving them props on everything,
Sure.
which should give it a 4, right? But I'm knocking it down to half a bong load because there isn't that overall message.
Yeah.
You know, and if it does come back to like, oh, nothing matters, is kind of the message or whatever, or just as simple as I interpret it as dreams are weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, I knew dreams were weird. I didn't have to watch this movie to realize it.
Yeah, for sure.
But man, I was cheaped up. I was smoking Gucci when I watched this, which is a heavy indica. So I was like really kind of like, I felt like a conspiracy kid who's been up all night watching YouTube videos.
Dude, I wonder if
trying
that's
to
why
piece
you got
everything together, you know?
I'm wondering if that's why you got the story more than I did.
I don't know if I really did, you know? I interpreted it as one long dream.
You were like on the right track.
One
the whole
single
time.
long weird dream.
Yeah.
And the story apparently is a bunch of ongoing daydreams, kind of like the torment of the old man.
Sure.
But you should tell people if you do watch it, watch all the way to the end of the credits, because the very last scene is another big reason why I interpreted it as a dream.
Sure. And I had missed that the first time, I think.
So yeah, 3.5. I'll give them their props, but if it does come back to this whole kind of nothing matters, dreams are weird thing, it's like, why the hell did I spend 2 hours and 15 minutes watching that shit?
Okay, so that's your interpretation of the message. Mine is, don't be like this old man and get in there. # no regrets. That's my interpretation. And I don't think either of us are wrong. So real quick, before we wrap up, though, I have a two-parter. One, how much rewatch value does this film have?
For someone like me, not much at all. For somebody that's
Okay, for
into
sure.
it, a whole bunch.
Okay, cool. Second part of the question, I think this is going to be one of the more interesting films to talk about in this sense, but would you recommend this film?
If you're looking to have a good time, no. If you're into kind of like...
I think you just alienated like 95% of our audience.
Well, you know, some people don't just want to have a good time when they consume media.
Oh, dude.
You know,
I had
like,
a film professor that was all about having a shitty time at the movies.
well, I'm not saying have a shitty time at the movies, but like it's not just like a fun thing when you watch media, especially in like the new world we live in where everything's at home.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of people like documentaries. Lots of people like educational TV. Lots of people
Sure.
like murder porn. You know, if you're into like mystery kind of psychological mindfuck, then hell yeah, watch it.
Yeah, for sure. And it is very like a melancholy kind of film.
Yeah.
It's it
If
definitely
you're
has
like a full-blown nihilist and you're into nothing matters as a philosophy,
yeah,
you love it.
sure.
And I can't hate on that philosophy too much. I got a lot of that in me.
All right, so I'm in agreement there. I think this is a film I recommend, and if you're even somewhat curious about this film after listening to us talk about it, I recommend giving it a go. And we warned you already that it's kind of a slog fest. It's gonna take some.
Might
It's
need
gonna
some
take some
notes.
effort.
You know, you might need to take some notes, but just know that it's not going to really make any sense in the end. So
No.
don't put too much effort into it.
No,
It's not like
Yeah.
you're cracking some big puzzle.
nah. But I do feel like there is an audience for this film,
For sure.
and it may not even be as small as we think. But for sure, I'm gonna say I recommend it too. And it's free on Netflix if you're a subscriber.
Netflix,
Netflix. Not a sponsor of the show. Call us.
pay me.
So yeah, I mean, any other kind of closing thoughts you had? I think we beat this one up. We gave this one a go around.
I think we did it justice, right?
For sure, I think we did.
We dove into it and we were fair.
Absolutely.
It's probably really easy. There's probably a lot of hot take people shitting on it.
Yeah.
And then there's probably people painting it as like the most ultimate psychological masterpiece of all time, which I think is probably disingenuous as well. But either way, it's good. It's a good conversation starter.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I think we are out of time, so let's get on out of here. This has been episode 39 of the Buff and the Blazer podcast, and we just discussed I'm Thinking of Ending Things, directed by Charlie Kaufman, and it's available on Netflix. Give it a watch if you found anything that we said in this podcast somewhat interesting. I think you'll definitely at least have something to say about it, for sure. But yeah, peeps, that's all we got. We will catch you guys on the next episode. Have a good week, everybody.
Peace.